Guys, today I'm going to do something that's a first, and not in a good way. I'm generally a positive person, and even though I've been jokingly accused of using the word beautiful way too many times in my reviews, I do try to be objective. I highlight positives, but I also talk about negatives while trying to frame them in a fair context without emotions into the mix. I can't do that today. A while ago, I reviewed the ITOY Paraceratherium. I was full of praise for it, so when pre-orders popped up for their resin diorama of Carnotaurus, my favorite dinosaur, I was immediately interested, but it was really expensive. I did some calculations to figure out how much I'd have to save, extra hours I'd have to work, and then I made the decision. This is the most expensive purchase for me for a very long time. In fact, it's more expensive than the release prices of many sideshow dinosauria. Well, it finally arrived, and the mildest thing I can say about it is
I am very disappointed!
I try to include science and facts of the animal I'm reviewing, and I hadn't planned to do that for this one because I've covered Carnotaurus in my PNSO review. And I imagined I'd focus on how great this set was, why I decided to get it, despite obvious inaccuracies like the hands, which is a huge compromise when it comes to Carnotaurus for me. Instead, I now find myself doing less a review and more a warning for those of you who might be thinking of getting this. I want you to know exactly what you'll actually get. The main issue I can wrap up in one word: the color. In 2 words, paint application. Now, we've seen fall-offs in paint apps before. In some models, we don't expect much because the release images already show how awful it's going to be. Even in expensive statues like Sideshow, we expect some reduction in complexity. But the keyword there was still some. And when it comes to this, how about total? Now first look at the release images. You'll see a mixture of bright pink, deep purple, greys and browns, subtle shades and fades. Stylistically, there's an almost metallic look to it. Now look at the subtle yet vivid orange-pink in the throat area, the very subtle mottlings and spotting in the animal. Let me show you what we get. Now all this is just my personal opinion, and watching the video or maybe some other reviews you might feel different, and if so, that's great. First, we'll take what I presume is the male. And I'll preface by saying that the problems I'll highlight here are pretty much replicated with the female. Keep in mind that for this part, I'm turning the lights up higher than usual, or you'd see even less of the detail because of how dark it is. Now let's start at the head, surely the main feature of any Carnotaurus. In the image, you see a purple that transitions into a pinkish hue in the face, with of course many layers. Here, you get none of that. The first impression is one blotch of dark brown. Now granted, some minimal washes of dark brown and perhaps black have been applied, at least around the antobital fenestra. There's a very dark piece of brown here, maybe a bit of black, and also a bit in the jaw, but it's barely discernible. There's no differentiation of the gum or the palate tissues at all. Now one might say, well, it's hard to have subtle washes in a dark color. Well, in the first place, it shouldn't have been this dark, should it? The release image shows a general color scheme of purple and pink, and not this. In the second place, there are large areas that are completely in one unicolor coat that are devoid of shades and fades, and that's unforgivable, especially on such a large canvas. You simply cannot leave these areas in one piece devoid of any washes or layers, because then it just looks like cheap unpainted plastic at this large size. Now what about the horns, which surely are the main feature of Carnotaurus? Well, to be fair, on the underside, you might be able to see here very, very faint banding of a slightly darker brown, which is barely discernible. But from the top of the head and the horns are one piece color, without any shades or fades. Which then tracks down the back of the animal down into the tail, like so. Now, how can such a vast and important expanse be so completely neglected as to have no washes and fades? The larger the area, the less excuse you have for not having more complexity of color. Now, as for the throat, what should have been a brilliant feature with an opportunity to shine and lend a splash of interest is also in this one-piece application. And what rubs salt on the wound is that this orange is applied in a way reminiscent of the watered-down Peppo Spinosaurus, as well as a watered-down ITOY's Spinosaurus. For perspective, we need look no further than this comparatively tiny PNSO. Now look at also the dark face, which has minute scalation that add dimension and shadow, the blending of the oral margins, the differentiated gum tissue, and yes, the horns and how naturally they're colored. Look at that fade. The rest of the animal is just pretty much the same. These spinal osteoderms here at this large size surely begging to be painted a bit more masterfully, completely undifferentiated. Now, to be fair, the flank area has some other washes. There is some mottling in the thighs, but generally it's a poor, lackadaisical paint application with the most rudimentary of washes. And the most egregious example of this is here on the underside. The tail, one single color. The pubic boot. The back of the thighs. And legs. The nails. The belly. Does all this not look like cheap plastic? Now here, let me show you the feel that this gives me. Here. This is exactly what it feels like. If you took this toy and you blew it up to this size, that's how it feels. Now, the one positive thing I have to say about the paint, the teeth. Now, these are well painted even at their small size. If I put my finger behind here, you can see they actually have applied a fade from the root down to the tip, which makes me absolutely stunned as to why the other parts were not similarly painted to this same care and quality given their size. It's almost like someone started off wanting to do a good job, and then something happened to completely change the direction of the movie. Well, I should also mention one other good thing, which is they changed the hands from the frog fingers of the prototype images to something slightly more accurate. Although, as you can see, they've added claws to the first and fourth fingers. Or to be generous, the fourth could also look just like one long metacarpal. As for the female, the story is pretty much the same. And I'll just do a quick scan here for you. The head and the face. A single color application of the top from the head down the back to the tail, again the underside, the tail, the back of the thighs and legs, and the belly. As for the base, it's generally a good idea in terms of features. Now you can see the log, the mud cracks, the plants, you know, I actually really like this, but once again, the color. I think you can just see for yourself how the base is really let down by the lack of color application. Now I want to go back to talking about the sculpt. In general, the scales and skin texture appear to be very shallow, and not at all as sharply defined as you see on the release images. Now, to be fair, it could be hugely due to a poor paint job that doesn't bring out the detail. You know, the really sad thing? You can see that sculpt-wise, some effort has been made to give it some higher level detail. It's not the best, but it is still quite good. You can see the difference of scalation in the thighs, the flank, the shoulder, of course these scutes, which nonetheless I feel at this large size could have more detail sculpted in, but because of this unsophisticated, often one color, one layer paint application, these scales actually give it a feel of cheap molded plastic. And that's really the rub. There's nothing that makes this look like a premium resin statue it should be. And if you look at the teeth again, I really feel this started off really well, and somewhere along the line, something happened behind the scenes. I don't know. And now it looks like an ordinary plastic or PVC model. And truly, this is heartbreaking. I love the idea. I love the sentiment. I like dinosaurs doing ordinary things, and this one is exactly that, a courtship. Now look here. This says, if you can catch me, then you can match me. I love that romantic message, but that's ruined now. I really debated doing this video. I'm not a negative person and I hate drama. But these aren't cheap statues. And as expensive as this was for me, it's still less than what many of you would pay because of shipping, reseller markups, and I believe most of you don't have Chinese connections, which I do. And you'll have to pay around $900 in the US, and in my opinion, it's not worth that. I couldn't in good conscience keep silent and let people spend money based on release images, expecting just a small shortfall and getting this. And the way this turned out, honestly, it could have been rendered just as well in PVC or vinyl and sold for maybe $200 or so. To be fair, I would pay maybe $300 for this because the sculpt is really quite good, but not $900, where both the sculpt and the paint tabs should be outstanding. Again, this is my personal view, and if you feel you like it, then don't let this stop you. Now, my personal consolation is that my work involves helping people and changing lives. So I'll consider the 20 hours or so I put in to earn the money for this not completely wasted. But if I'd known this was going to be what I got, I could have donated that money or saved it for 22 to 25 PNSOs. Okay, so that's it. I'll include some videos, some photos at the end, and I'll see you soon with a real review. So take care, guys.